I found an increase in the incidence of type 1 diabetes, thyroid disease, increased incidence of environmental allergies, all these outcomes that were sort of primarily immunological based. So seemed to be some sort of change in the immunological system of these donor conceived people, that all these outcomes, well, the majority were sort of immunological based. And then also from a mental health aspect, there was an increased incidence of attention deficit disorder, autism, and then they're more likely to have gone seen health professionals, have problems with depression, and then also looking at validated scores such as what we call DAS-21, which is the depression, anxiety, and stress scores. Don't see people, at that present point in time were more stressed than the average person. So we saw that there was an increase in both physical and mental health poor outcomes. I ended up having a look at perinatal outcomes for donor conceived people through donor sperm and donor oocytes. So I conducted the first systematic reviews in those areas. So the donor oocyte outcomes was very significant for donor conceived oocyte neonates to be born prematurely and of low birth weight. So which feeds into what I mentioned before from the DOHAD hypothesis. And then for donor sperm, they were more likely to be born of low birth weight and have increased birth defects. So that fits in with the DOHAD hypothesis of okay, they're born with worse outcomes at birth. Does this then translate into what we sort of know with DOHAD in increased cardiovascular risk or type 2 diabetes and obesity in adulthood? So then I decided to conduct some research into that, because the research that I'd seen at the time looking at donor conceived people was mainly sort of focused on, psychosocial outcomes. There was a little bit, but that was sort of they didn't encapsulate a lot of information for health, because it could affect a large area of outcomes. So I tried to conduct both a physical and mental health analysis of donor conceived people from around the world and compared that with spontaneously conceived people. I ended up looking at donor sperm, donor oocyte, and donor embryo people. But for the analysis and what I published, it was mainly donor sperm people, because the numbers were large enough, while the other ones were a little bit small. But what we found there actually surprised me. So I was expecting, because I knew that they had these adverse perinatal outcomes, I was expecting that we might find an increase in cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes or obesity. And I didn't. But